Amir, appreciate you hopping on today. Super excited for this one. You sit right in my sweet spot of that media and that tech and sports. So look forward to an awesome one today.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. This is exciting. This is a long time coming. Been watching your content, long time listener, first time caller. So we're going to have some fun. And media and technology is everything in sports today. So it's powering whether you're on the athlete side, the team side, and the investor side. So excited to dive deep into this conversation. Let's have some fun.
We're about to. So give us the rundown of Zoomph first, right? What you're building, the inspiration, which ultimately is going to set the tone for a lot of this conversation and where you're getting a lot of your insights because you do sit in the center of having built something cool to a lot of other big macro players, which will be honestly, it's going to be a great education session for a lot of people. So props to all you listening right now.
Yeah, no, thank you. If you're listening, you're passionate about the space for sure. You got a niche audience here, and it did not come easy what we built over these years. It takes a few beers to tell the whole story, but essentially what we're doing at Zoomph is we're understanding what the branded value exposure is for brands that activate with sports today. Now, our aspect and our growth is all of entertainment, but today we're primarily focused on what does exposure brands get with teams, with leagues, with athletes, and communicating what that ROI and value is, leveraging social media data, leveraging broadcast data, leveraging streaming data, leveraging in-venue data. I mean, everything. We want to articulate exactly, if you put a dollar in, what's the value that you get out of sports.
Very cool. And then how have you, I guess, evolved the product over time? Like you come up with this initial idea, what does that look like as you've built it out, gained more clients, and then you start to look toward going even beyond sports at some point?
Yeah, I've been working in sports for over 10 years now, right? Got the bald spot and gray hair to prove it.
Yeah.
But we didn't originally start in sports. And there's this notion, and I might have an accent if you talk to me long enough that you can tell that I haven't worked for a team. But Uber didn't own a single taxi before they became a company. Amazon wasn't in retail before they took out Walmart, right? Or that's to be
Mhm.
determined. But what I bring to the table is a technologies aspect of like what can we bring to the challenges that we face. We originally started as a platform in a slightly different, but like we were around fan engagement. We were pulling content. Started with the State Department. It's a long story. Again, like I said, got in with Monumental early days, 2013, 14, to do visualizations of fan engagements on fan days. That was our gateway drug into sports. It was around 2018, 19 until the Cowboys at one point and SG and the Knicks at one point asked us separate questions where we're like, holy shit, like we've created something that partnerships need. And it was around 2019 where we just dove in deep into partnerships. And so our journey has we've been through a lot of ups and downs. We found every way that didn't work before it did work. And that advantage brought us into the moment of like how we could iterate as quickly as we can. And so we started with social. And so we have social APIs, partnerships with, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, Meta, Facebook, YouTube. And we wanted to understand what the value of that exposure was. One of our early deals before we were in partnerships, we got barter, which is not, for the entrepreneurs that are joining the space, every team's going to offer you some seats or a logo signage or
Mhm.
something. And at that point, we didn't really know. We thought it was cool. It was from our city. It was kind of an ego buy to see our logo on there. But when we got the recap, we didn't understand what was the value of our logo exposure at the time there and why did it make an impact. We understood all the elements that they sold us on, but we couldn't really determine that ROI. So that really opened up our eyes into like, how would we quantify this? We would rather have them tweet about us or post something on LinkedIn in front of our business decision makers and really talk about why us and why we are relevant to the game day experience and really like connect with that audience base, not the entire fan base. We're looking for a specific niche audience within it, right? And so that was like our first element of uncovering like there's a gap here. We're not able to really articulate like there's so many groups of fans within these and niches get riches, right? Like if you can identify these niche audiences. So that's where we started on the social side. Then we got more and more questions over the years on like, help us do this for broadcast. And we started looking into that and we started asking ourselves, how would we do it? And then there was innovations that were happening with smart TVs, right? And where the industry is. And we did this deal recently with LG where we get access to their smart TV data globally, right? And so that really opens it up where now we can understand what people are watching on linear, what people are watching on streaming. And that's a key difference maker right now. And you saw Walmart just acquire Vizio. They
Mhm.
want that Inscape data that Inscape's been selling. And these models are going to get more and more closed because these are the future gatekeepers of what people are watching. There's other huge opportunities here with like matching first party data matching. So like, okay, I see Andrew lives in Florida, but he
Mhm.
watches the Cubs. Like, what's the relevance here? Or is it the away game that the Cubs are playing? Like, there's so many things that we can tell. We could do overlap analysis of like they watch NBA and WNBA. What's unique about this? So there's a lot of things that we can now access as part of this, but the viewership data has been tremendous. And we've been really challenging what legacy data providers have been providing with speed of data, with how quickly we can get this data in your system with an API, doing minute by minute analysis, and getting down to a zip code level. And so this answers a lot of questions so that if I'm a healthcare system, who's watching is an entire fan base. Is this a healthcare system where I'm competing with zip codes with another healthcare system, or if I'm a regional bank? So there's a lot of ways we can take it. But to answer your question in a very short way, we start with social data. We're now in broadcast, but we also do additional services like Inveni and stuff like that. But it all boils down to like the partners activating with the team or a league or an athlete, and what is the ROI for that? And at the end of the day, we feel that we're the authority that can tell uh, that understanding of what that ROI is. And our oxygen is fandom. So wherever there is fandom, we have the authority to kind of go out and analyze that. So we use that using AI models, looking for logos, looking for audience engagement, looking for viewership data to tell these stories and help people understand and make better matches.
Yeah, it's super cool product, and I mean, it's really products, not product, to some extent. How do you view the athlete versus the fan versus the entity? Like, how is the company at Zoomph? Like, how do you view them differently, or how do you look at them? I'm always curious how, as a company versus an outside entity, evaluates them and sees where like the monetization engines are. Like, what are it's going to be different for athletes versus teams and leagues versus media or broadcasters.
Yeah, that's a great question, Andrew, and it really like you got to break it down to like where we are in the creator economy, right, and how that's evolved. And at the end of the day, it's an author, it's a creator, right? Whether it's an organization or an individual. And a lot of these athletes have teams around them, like helping them create content. That's the right approach to take. But we essentially look at it like I understand when it comes to partnerships and the different assets that are available and the different engines behind activating on these assets are different. But at the end of the day, attention is currency, content is commerce, and audience are assets. And so we look at what audiences do these entities hold. We give more information about these audiences. Is your target audience within this conversation or not? And then we look at the level of engagement that's being generated by these, whether it's a team or athlete or league, from the engagement that's happening or the viewership that's happening to better quantify, like, is there? Is there an audience that you want in this audience that's engaging and interacting? And then there's other aspects of like understanding, like, does it make sense to do this partnership? What aspects do you do as an athlete, or do you have, if you're, you look at local one, Monumental Sports just signed a deal with TikTok, right? There's a reason why TikTok wants to be exposed in the DC market. And there's a lot of lawyers there. There's a lot of entities that are having conversations around other things that are happening there. So, there's aspects of the market, there's aspects of where they are that makes additional value to like why that sponsorship makes sense. But at the end of the day, we look at the data, and the data, we are constantly ingesting more data points to understand why is this valuable? Why does this make sense? Sometimes what's really exciting is when you're able to uncover what other people are doing. And what we try to do is we bring a portfolio lens. And I joke, we pay for Bezos every third trip to the moon with our AWS bills, but we're providing a portfolio like lens. So even like organizations like Arctos are leveraging Zoomph to understand like, okay, here's this properties that we have investments in, right? How are they doing on digital? How are they selling? And digital is a really interesting asset right now. both on the property side, but both on the brand side, because of the sort of like never ending inventory that could be possible as a result of it. And there's a fine line. You can't overindulge with like logos on everything and just logo slapping. But you look at organizations like Wrexham FC and like how they do that storytelling to surface like the different brand partnerships that they have that really make a memorable impact. And it's certainly exciting. And so to provide that portfolio lens, you can not only see how you're doing, you can understand how your competitors are doing in other sports. You can also understand like what has been working for other markets and other leagues. So we provide this perspective so that you're not just looking at yourself in a vacuum. You're also understanding what is Dude Wipes doing that's so aggressively creative right now in this space versus that space. All those things come back, and we just want to provide as much information as possible around all the partnerships that are happening, and give that guidance. Hopefully that answered your question, but call
Yeah,
me out
yeah.
if I got a little off course there.
No, it
Yeah.
was great. I just want to go one layer deeper. So someone like a Caitlin Clark,
Hell yeah.
how do you at Zoomph, or what are people looking for? I think she'd be a great example of, we all know she's driven the WNBA to new heights and the brands and the fever and everyone. But like, give us like some of the meat and juice in between of how you go, no, yeah, like here's actually why, and here's what it's worth, and why they can sign a higher media package, and why they're flying private now, and why she's signing a Nike, sort of more the juice and
100%.
the meat of it.
Yeah, and like you said, there's so many levels to that answer, right? Like whether it's on her on a player level, Indiana Fever on a property level, WNBA is a league level, or brands just in general looking at women's sports. And we work with some of the best women's sports properties teams, and that is one of the best opportunities. Simply as a capitalist, not as someone like I'm all for the equality there. Board member of Women in Sports Tech, like I love that. We need that diversity 100%. But simply looking at it as a capitalist, there's no better buy for brands right now, because the price that are being sent across the table are undervalued, and you could take advantage of it as a brand by getting in, but also the sentiment that you get involved with because of the cause and what you can do and taking it to the next level. That aside, like getting specific with Clayton Clark, one, we've got a report that we're going to be pumping, and we pump out a ton of reports. So on our website under resources, like we'll do stuff on WNBA. Specifically, we'll have something on Caitlin. But what we specifically look at is the amount of engagement that she's generating, and being able to break it down from like as the other teams in the other league, because there's no question on the value that she provides, but we can look at any content that is identifying with her, all the brands that are being visualized around her. And then we can also look at this against other content to make those cases, whether it's before the league, because we were tracking it before she was there, whether it was if she's in it or not, or other WNBA content, was like the league doing better overall without her specifically. Like, because a lot of people are going to say, like, well, if she's not on the broadcast, the viewership's going to go down. But overall, the average of all viewerships are up. And so all
Hmm.
those aspects, we can tell a deeper story. And not just that, we can say, okay, here's the zip code level activity in Indiana of the fever, of like where there's now growth where it previously wasn't. But additionally, we could look at other zip codes to be like, where are other hotbeds of viewership that's happening across the W, or across other women's sports. And that's important, one, on the league side, so they can identify what markets make the most sense as they add Portland or add the Bay and all these other things. But two, as a brand, understanding like, where are your target demos? Where do you want to be? What kind of consumer is a fan of women's sports, right? And all those things. And women's sports fans have been the get the most credit. Like, whether you're on Twitch or YouTube or some of the previous like streaming stuff, it is not never an easy day to be a women's sports fan, and we're seeing more and more catering to that, and it is going to get absolutely tremendously better. But certainly, she is a catalyst, and we could look at all those at different levels of perspective using the data to articulate why specifically the impact that she makes with her exposure to it.
Yeah, and she's a great example, but it's also, you can do the same thing with Messi and MLS, right? Or Jordan in the NBA. And so it's kind of funny that it's just like women's, and people are like, well, it's just growing as a whole. Like, yeah, it is. It's like, but she is that catalyst, like you talked about, which I like that. You had mentioned
And,
earlier, and I wanted to just swing back on this for some insights just for founders in general, but about the bartering, and when you were coming in and teams try to not pay or do different things. What are some other things as you've been building across sports for over a decade now that you've seen that people should know as an insight or you find interesting of just, it's just for the builders in sports. That's what Profluent's what we're built on. So I'm just curious your insights there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've learned a lot. And I guess being an entrepreneur, you have to be great at losing. You have to be great at picking yourself up. And now it's at a point where like we crave the obstacle. I want to know where the weakness is. And my method, whether it's like a caveman or not, like I need to find the weakness in order to get it to like make myself invisible. So like I love learning from other people that have been stabbed before me so I don't have to have the same scar. So
Hmm.
one is just having great mentors, great people that have experienced the space in different ways, leveraging them as advisors, leveraging them as partners to make sure that like you're not going in there blindly and following the same mistakes that other people have. And I've got great, Ali Manicherry, Elise Soul, Dennis, like different people that have like guided me to make sure like business wise, I'm making the right calls in everything that we do. Because ultimately I get all the credit, even though I don't deserve it, but I definitely deserve all the blame for every mistake that we do. So I have to like learn ahead of time. But we've gotten things like, hey, we'll pitch you 200K, you pay us 200K and we'll make you a name brand in sports as a result of our partnership. And then there's assets and barter. And I used to run away from the barter. Now I kind of like it because access is also a currency, right? And so like we have some specific teams and specific markets where we do have a little bit of barter in there to allow us to then take other customers and other investors and board members and get them to games and experience it. I think that's one of the perks of like being in the industry. But certainly, it's all about like finding that next obstacle and just being like, good, like this is awesome, like we figured it out, like what we need to get across. And we're constantly asking in every demo like, don't go easy on us, we want you to ask tough questions, like I want you to like walk away with this with full understanding. And that mentality has really, in the very beginning, in the early days, I would blame stuff like, oh, I'm on my home Wi-Fi, I'm traveling, this isn't loading right. And those early days, there was a lot of stuff that we could iterate on and get better. But now, like the speed of iteration is really what I look at inside our organization. How quickly do we learn? And our team is full of people from different aspects of the ecosystem. Recently last year we brought on like Andrew Deskovich, for example. He led media for MSG and the Knicks and WWE, and his ability to articulate like things like, oh wow, let's do this analysis on the Mets game when Monday Night Football starts and see like what is the droppage on RSNs
Hmm.
when the Monday Night Football game starts, right? And there was a 20% drop on it. That type of thinking, right? Like, I certainly don't have it. Like my thinking now has changed. Like my role as an entrepreneur is like at this point I work for the team. I move obstacles out of their way. I'm thinking in the future and like really clearing the path so that we can continuously move. And then my job is to recruit the best people possible and keep this team together, like the 96 Bulls, right? Like, just ultimately we have to have, and we look at ourselves like a sports team too, and like how we, challenge each other and we want the best for it. But so to answer your question, you're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot. You want to have as many people guiding you, and you have to get up as quickly as possible. Comfort is the enemy of greatness, and you want to constantly be in situations where you don't know what you're doing, and you have to learn very quickly. And we've done that. We've done that with broadcast. We've iterated so insanely quick on this. We're ahead of others in the space. Other people want to do what we're doing on this, which is not a lot of people can say, but we went all in on it and we decided we had to do it. And we had people look at this early and just, be like, whoa, you guys have a lot of room to grow. We said, okay, awesome. Wait, where? And now we're at a point where like, whoa, no one is doing this. How are you guys doing this? Now it's about a validation, right? Like making people understand it. But we've gotten everything proposed under the sun, and we've made mistakes, and we've lived to survive because we have an amazing team, and we just keep figuring it out. As simple as that is, but if your mentality changes about the obstacles and you look at them as like one ups or like mushrooms on Mario Kart, where you go even
Hmm.
faster once you learn what is exactly needed. And I'm grateful for every customer and every prospect that points out something that we can be better at. And so I don't know if that's a cop out answer, but like really, you just got to love to lose, because that entrepreneurship is taking one step forward, two steps back every time, and just being okay with it and just
Mm.
reset, go at it the next day.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great. And then I guess from a macro, you mentioned your reports that people should go check them out. What is it, Zoomph.com, or is that your
Yeah,
UO?
Zoomph.com, and then I think it's slash resources.
Okay.
And we give way too much data away. And that's always been the case where we have some customers be like, I know we buy data from you, but you had this one report last year. Can you update this report too? And we're like, yeah, of course, right? Or we could just put it behind a paywall and ask them to pay more. But really, what we're trying to do is like we want the industry to understand what's possible with the level of attribution. How
Hmm.
can like this ROI is possible, right? Like, and that's our goal. And so if we do stuff that people pay us for free, right, and get it out there, and that's literally, in the early days, we got retweeted by Gary Vee, we got retweeted 3 times by The Rock. We understood like if you drop great data for someone during a campaign, they're automatically going to want to like pat themselves on the back, but it's always worse. You need someone else to say it. You can't say it yourself. And so
Mm.
we were that person. And we also learned that if you do a league report, don't do all the leagues and show the worst performing team, right? Like do the top 10, because that last one will not want to talk to you, right? Like, and so we
Interesting.
learned over time, but content was our ability to become relevant in this space. And by putting ourselves out there, much like you do in your content, which like, if you're listening to this and you're not subscribed to you on LinkedIn and some of your and Twitter and that, or X or whatever, like shame on them. But like content is that ability to really drive. And we've been really great at like driving content that's relative to our fans. We get a lot of noise where it's like fans, right? Not really decision makers of sports marketing and brand,
Mm.
but that's okay. Like it helps the algorithm find it on their news feed to get it. And we're constantly looking at our data to look at the qualified, like, and the names that come to our website are absolutely insane. And we just do a really great way of like producing content. We look at ourselves of like, how do we serve the industry? We can't just take away from it, just keep taking. We
How do
got
you
to give
give?
back in some
Yeah.
way. And so we give back with content.
I love that. Yeah, where I was going at is with these reports, with all this data, you guys have a lot of unique insights of where the space is going as well, which is why, like a Arctos, for people that aren't familiar, they're investing minority stakes in the traditional NFL or soon to be NFL and NBA and MLB teams, NHL. What are some things you're paying attention to or are being talked about from a macro lens across sports? Just seeing a ton of this data, seeing a ton of these moving pieces. I'm sure you've gathered some, taken the data
Yeah.
and put some or maybe put it through an AI engine or who knows, but I'm sure you've,
No. Oh, everything. But
yeah.
no, 100%. And I'll talk for a week. So tase me if I get too excited or if I keep going. But
Yeah,
like,
we're perfect. We're at
yeah,
23 minutes, so you got
yeah.
5, 6, 7 minutes, and then
Okay.
we'll
Yeah. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. There's one, sports as a non-traditional asset. Like, I mean, you could mess everything up under the sun and still walk out with 6 billion as a team owner, right? With your partners, and so it's highly profitable, non-traditional asset. That's why Arctos and a lot of these private equities, and we're seeing a ton of sports investors like knock on the door, not really understanding the space, but understanding there's an impact here because if there's a lot of money coming into sports teams and they're going to spend it with technology, and there's all aspects of the technology, whether you're on the performance side or on the business side, like we are. And so we're seeing a lot of money come in from different angles, and them wanting to understand, like, what are the drivers of this? And really, it comes down to media. And really, what I'm seeing is like, look, NFL did their media deal like a year ago. NBA just, they're going into it right now. It's now contracted, but it'll go into effect next year. And one thing's certain, like streaming is coming, but it's not, you're not going to miss a finals for the next 10 years on broadcast linear. And so to people that say like linear is dead, like radio is still around too. So like it's not going anywhere. It's the lion's share of where viewership is happening, despite the moving needle of like where streaming is coming. Sports has clearly made a stake, whether you have ESPN flagship coming with their D2C or whatever, but streaming is absolutely coming at some point. And the reason behind that is there's so much more data behind streaming on the individual where you can really tell. And this is the story that we're looking to articulate at the end of the day is you saw the exposure, you made a purchase, right? We're not there with the full aspect of that journey. One, because it'll be too expensive for the customer right now, and the technologies aren't like quite there, but we're so freaking close. And
Hmm.
I'm always looking just a little ahead of time to see like where we can be with that whole storytelling. But at the end of the day, that's where we want to be. We want to understand who is watching what and how can we digitalize what we have on social the same way that we can. And we know that sports is the churn killer. Like, people do not unsubscribe in the middle of the NFL season. Like, God forbid that, you would lose your mind. That's why all these deals, like Charter and or
Red Zone.
DirecTV and that they're forcing it with Disney to kind of have these, like, whether we have these skinny bundles or whatever we want to go to. But like, when it comes to these big moment games, you've got a ton of advertisers that are looking for these major audiences. Sports is the last appointment based viewing experience. It's reality TV, no script, right? At least not for the NFL. That's a joke. But like, all that is like tremendous, right? And the amount of attention that they hold. Like, social media platforms don't hold that same level of audience at the same time in that same way before around such a specific niche. And so the marketability factor for brands, it is the best opportunity for you as a brand to stay relevant. And there's only so many places. Like, if they have an exclusivity with the team, like, you can't get your assets in the stadium. So what do? You run commercials, you maybe do a deal with the league, maybe you do a deal with the broadcast. There's so many layers that you could find your way in, but that is becoming harder because bigger brands are activating around it. And we're going to see, amateur sports become more and more professionalized as a result of it, because brands are going to want to get exposure in some way, and they're going to get not that ability to be able for it. So, ton of money coming in. Now you have the private equity groups like Arctos, Sixth Sense, some of these other ones that are getting it. If you think about these owners, right? If I want to go buy another team, like say there's a baseball team in my market and it's up for sale. Oh, I need liquidity to go out and do that. The easy button is going to Arctos or someone that already has all the credibility, has done all the due diligence, has everything articulated in that they get quick cash back. It's harder to get like a non-owner becoming a new owner, background history check, credit check, but all that kind of stuff. So those, that's only going to get more and more popular, and they're going to have to find what that, pendulum is for how much equity that they can hold. And then at some point we're going to see sovereign equity. And I think the government will get more involved when that becomes a thing. But now it even makes it harder for the millionaires, boo-hoo, for them to become owners. But like, the cat's out of the bag. Owning a sports team is highly profitable, and there's more money coming as a result to the entire ecosystem. And that's why you're seeing, more players want to get in that traditionally haven't been into it. But the thing that is making it thrive is the level of attention that it creates on that big screen. And so it's exciting. Linear is not going anywhere today. Streaming is coming. We're figuring it out. And all that data, at the end of the day, the main value is going back to these brands that are supporting this entire system to say, like, yes, because you put $1 in, you got a Coke out or a Pepsi out or whatever.
Yeah.
We're trying to articulate that ROI of, like, was it worth $1 for the Pepsi or Coke? Was it, and that's our role in this entire ecosystem.
Yeah. And the only thing I'll add on to that is, as AI, we'll see where it plays out, gets better and starts to automate more things, sports becomes even more of that community base and that human connectivity where we're losing it in a lot of other places. So yeah, like what you said on the media side, it's like there's a bunch of different factors sort of pushing into here, which is exciting. And it's exciting because, like you said, it's only at the top layer right now. There's so much more still to go here. And that's where, we try to live, is if it's going here, let's go know this better than anyone, and allow the big players like the Arctos to stay up at the NFL and NBA and in those $1 billion ranges.
Hell yeah, man. It's how many times do people cry during a game for whatever the reason, whether it's fighting for cancer right now, we're all fighting it directly or indirectly, and the nonprofits that get involved here, or just you see a play, you see an old man give a ball to a kid, right? Like, even though he caught them, like, all these aspects of it, or just like retirement of Sue Bird and some of these other not transformative athletes. Like, it's easy to see the human element within sports. We're not going to watch robots. Maybe there'll be some aspect or niche of like robots beating each other up, but like, for real, sports is somewhere where we all come together. It is replacing community, where we are becoming more and more lonely and what's the right word? Individualized, because
Yep.
of, like, we're on our phone and all that. So the one place we can get together, it's the religion of US, and you might argue other countries too, and it brings that communal activity together. So it's absolutely only getting stronger. It's only getting more and more attention. You're seeing the viewerships now get back to where it was years ago, and it's becoming more. It's the form of, for any brand, it is the fastest way to become relevant. You saw companies like FTX and crypto
Hmm.
that all went and went, but the main thing is like those became mainstream names because of their involvement with these things, and so like that absolutely
So do you see a
delivers.
lot of
Yeah,
AI companies now as they start to become more
100%.
liquid, start to deploy capital into sports sponsorship? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing it already. You saw the Olympics where like Salesforce and Google and everything was activating on like user AI. And like our AI right now is where we're focused on computer vision models, and we're looking at assets, we're looking at logos and all those different things. But like there's also other aspects of that can impact, and there's computer vision also on the performance side. But LLMs and everything, and it's sort of like understanding if I want to ask ChatGPT, to look at my fantasy roster and like understand any subs, there's so many aspects where AI is going to come in and just absolutely transcend. But it's kind of like the internet. It's it just catalyzes things. It might replace some jobs, but at the end of the day, the person like leveraging AI is the one that's going to win. And so, yeah, 100% see that happening, and then everyone's going to want you to use their AI, in order to have some form of success. So 100% see that as becoming more of a vertical. Cannabis, I don't know. A lot of this is going to come to what happens with this next election, what rules and what things become more laid back or not or whatever. But I mean, just any industry that is looking to make an impact, it's sports, right? And so we're going to see more money come to this space, and it's really about like understanding like how is this money impacted and where do we go from here is what's really exciting because you mentioned Caitlin Clark. You mentioned, it's just continuously driving, and we're better as a society. Sports,
Agree.
it was a rough time during the pandemic, and I think it all resonated how important it is in our lives.
Yeah, I agree. Well, no better way than that to end, Amir. This was awesome. We could go all day on this stuff. So appreciate you hopping on and sharing your insights. And for anyone, make sure to check out Zoomph, ZOOMPH.com, and I'm sure your socials are similar.
Yeah, Zoomph on everything and come with hard questions. We want you to challenge us, right? Like we are the best at what we do. We want people to drive us to the next degree. And so for us, like if you listen, let me know. Like reach out to me on LinkedIn, say what's up. Trying to be a bigger part of your community for sure, Andrew. And excited to help anyone further their industry. I've learned a lot, and if you can learn from my scars, happy to teach you as well and share the wins. But thank you for
Appreciate it.
making this podcast. Thank you for making the content. Thanks for giving us some time here. We're doing some exciting things.
Love it.